All throughout the Trump presidency, conspiracy theorists, i.e. the Democrats, accused Trump of being in collusion with Russia. You remember that. Russia interfered with our election. Trump's a Russian operative, a Putin puppet. It was the only headline you got for months. But of course it was all lies, damned lies, from CNN, from the Washington Post, from MSNBC. You remember MSNBC host Rachel Maddow, right? Back in 2021, Maddow suggested on her show that then Congressman Devin Nunes refused to turn over a package to the FBI that he received from a suspected Russian operative back in 2019, a real Russian operative. She's wrapped herself up in a defamation lawsuit, and Nunes is suing the media company because of it. So far, we've learned that on Monday, New York federal judge Peter Kevin Castell has dismissed all but one of the defamation claims made by Maddow, meaning that the lawsuit will be moving forward towards trial. Joining me right now is criminal defense attorney Bob Bianchi to give us more on this. Bob, what's the latest? They threw out virtually everything except one aspect of this suit. What is that?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of a blow to the Nunes camp to a great extent, but not necessarily a complete extent. Essentially, at this stage of a proceeding, after all the discovery, that's depositions, interrogatories, after all the parties gather information and are allowed to find out as many facts as they can, there's a procedure in every civil case where you can go before a court and you could say, Judge, there is no evidence to support the claims that the plaintiff, in this case Devin Nunes, has filed, and therefore, before it even goes to a trial, you should just throw it out. And essentially, that motion was made by the NBC Maddow camp, and the judge, in fact, threw out every single count of the complaint but for one. And that specifically deals with the aspect where she said he never turned it over to the FBI. So the judge is allowing that one minor aspect of the complaint to go forward. The good news for the Nunes camp, however, is that nevertheless, one count goes forward for a jury to determine, which is a very high standard for any news agency, including yourself, Addison, myself, we're involved in the media, as to whether or not, because Devin Nunes is a public figure, you can meet that high burden under the defamation law for public figures, which says it has to be a either reckless disregard for the truth or, in fact, that she knew what she was saying was untruthful, which is very, very difficult. But nevertheless, he gets to make his arguments before a jury.
And I want to ask you, why is it so difficult? Why does being a public figure throw an extra, what sounds, from what you're saying, like a pretty big wrench in this case? Why is it so difficult?
Yeah, well, having been a public figure and reading things that people write, and you're just like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's like so contrary. And by the way, opinions are not subject to defamation cases. If they were, the reasoning goes, Addison, then, public figures give up their expectation of privacy to a significant degree. What the refrain always used to me, whether it was inaccurate or outright wrong, and in some instances I knew in my heart they were lying, the press, is that, well, when you're a big boy, big girl, you go in and you want one of these jobs, you have to face and be subjected to the criticism of the public, and we are not going to treat you like an ordinary citizen. So that's the theoretical reason as to why they make it harder for defamation cases for people who purposefully put themselves out into the public sphere.
Now, Bob, I do also want to get your comment on this story. This is from Human Events. The Bar Association has dropped LSAT requirements to get into law school. And a lot of people citing that it's to help increase diversity in law school. I've got to ask you, as a lawyer, for them to drop the LSAT, what do you make of this? Do you think that it's a good thing, bad thing? Where do you stand?
I think the LSAT's an abomination, personally, Addison. I don't care whatever rubric you want to call it. I've never looked into that, so I can't say. My dad's 90 years old. He's a practicing attorney. He didn't have to go through the LSATs, and I think the quality of lawyering from 40, 50, 60 years ago, it was a lot better than it is today. Listen, I sold those courses. It got to a point where if you took the courses to help you improve your LSAT score, which it helps you do, it helps you, teaches you how to pass the test. My dad dad would always say, it doesn't teach you to be a better lawyer. It's not an indicator that you will be a better lawyer. What we should work on with get admissions to law school, who right now, all they're driven by is the LSAT, Addison. I've sat on these boards. LSAT, LSAT, LSAT. They want to get as many people with the highest score possible so that they can tier themselves higher, make more money, get more contributions. But the question is, are you producing a better quality lawyer down the road? I prefer to see a person's personal characteristics. How did they do in school? What were their grades like? What are their extracurricular activities? We don't need another pile of brainiacs. No, and I don't mean no disrespect to people who score well on a test. It is not an indicator of your ability to be a good lawyer whatsoever. It's unfair. And listen, some people just are not good test takers, but have worked so hard and done everything they can to demonstrate that they're worthy of representing people as attorneys down the road, but can be barred simply because they can't take a good test. Let's point, by the way, on this racial thing, and I haven't gotten in the details of it, but you know what? You got to pay to play now. If you do not take one of those LSAT preparation courses and learn how to take the test, you are at a distinct disadvantage. So what gave you the competitive edge when I was going through law school by taking one of those courses, they're making so much money that now you must take it to even stay competitive with the rest of the people. So I say amen to the end of LSATs.
So you think a lot of these standardized tests are just kind of a cash cow for people, for organizations to come up with a guide to win the test and essentially enrich themselves off of it?
Absolutely. I mean, and then you get a person who may be a subpar student, look, when I was a prosecutor, I didn't care what your LSAT score. We don't even ask that question. I care, did you graduate from an accredited law school? Did you pass the bar? And when I would look at resumes, I wanted people who lived life's experiences. When I came into this world, I was an EMT, an emergency medical technician. I've been a cook. Now all we see is people, when I look at resumes, they have no work experience. All they've done is academics learn how to pass a test. They pass a test, they come out. Look, law is not so much an intellectual exercise as it is one from the heart. It's about your dedication and of course you have to have a level of competence. And this argument that we're setting people up to fail because if you don't pass the LSATs or do really well on the LSATs, then you may not pass the bar, to me is ridiculous.
Yeah, I hear that. Bob Bianchi from Law and Crime Network. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
You got it, Addison. Be well.